Honorable members, don't be surprised that Honorable Karim is not so much active as you know him. He's in a consulting room with a doctor now, but he has joined the meeting. As and when we need him, we'll call him for the voting. So don't be surprised. Honorable Mkiva, are you alive there on the audio in the Eastern Cape? Are you okay?
I am fine.
Let's move to 4.6.
I am very fine.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you.
Cheers.
4.6, AFASA. Nothing on AFASA. Black search, I'm sorry. 4.7. 4.8, South African Faith Communities Environment Institutes. 4.8. 4.9. Estelle, please remind us on the areas where Honorable Karim has made proposals. Ne?
Yes, Chairperson. It's all under the recommendations.
Oh, okay. Number 5, we're now going to item 5, observations and findings. I think this is where members must find space to. We have first identified what Honorable Ryder proposed earlier, that we put it here on findings and recommendations. We've agreed on that. What else? Pelelani, you have said something. Mr. Domo?
Hello, Chair. Hello, Chair.
Yes.
One, we are going to, because we already have a finding on COSATO in that section, we are going to strengthen it by adding what Honorable Member was raising. That's 1. 2, we are also going to have to add
on
the
justice
issue of public participation that was raised by Budget Coalition. Those are the 2 issues that we can consider now, Chair. Yes, which I believe that myself and my colleagues will capture and review some of those findings accordingly. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you so much. Can we pass Estelle here?
Yes, Chairperson, thank you. I've just added 1 sentence in the meeting chat. If members find that acceptable to add under the body under 4.5, then we can do that.
4.5, okay. Okay, on recommendations, number 6.
No, sorry, Chair, before we run away.
The recommendations, Mr. Ryder would like to have a bite.
Okay, Honorable Ryder, I think you can raise your hand or
I did so in the chat. Chair. I don't have an option to raise the hand, but I will go. Chairperson, in 5.1. Excuse me.
Honorable Ryder.
Yeah, bo.
If you don't have that raise hand thing, please use the chat.
I did, Chair.
Okay, thank you. You can go on under 6 recommendation.
Under 5, Chairperson, please. 5.1.
5.1 or above.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first sentence, the first paragraph.
Okay. Yeah, 5.1, it says the committee welcomes the contents of the bill. I'm not sure that we did. I think the committee noted the contents of the bill. We haven't yet welcomed it. We were still deliberating it. So I'd prefer the word welcomes to change to noted. And the same goes for 5.2. I think in the process of our deliberations, we will find out if we welcome it or don't. So 5.1 and 5.2, I'd like the words welcome to change to noted. In 5.3, Chair, it says that while the committee supports the budgetary prioritization process during the COVID-19 pandemic, it has noted with concern the service delivery implications emanating from the baseline reductions of conditional grants, etc., which is fine. What it then goes on to say is that the committee further notes that reductions were mostly made in underperforming or underspending programs. Now, I think that is presupposing an adjustment budget that we haven't yet seen. So I don't believe that our committee did further note that reductions came, because we're talking about a budget reprioritization process that we haven't seen. So the second half of 5.3, Chair, in my view, needs to come out. 5.5.
Okay.
Chair, if I can just go through my various changes and then perhaps we can have comments on all of them. 5.5, the COVID pandemic has had dire implications. Sorry, that was just for me to highlight that one, I beg your pardon. And then 5.10, it says the committee notes the slow progress by the communications sector in implementing and releasing broadband spectrum. I don't think so. I think we noted with concern the slow progress. And I'd like to add the words concern into that sentence. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I want us members to focus on the first two proposals that the Honorable Ryder has done. Instead of welcoming, he said we must note, and I want to be convinced as to why are we not welcoming this bill, which was presented in Feb 2020. Also on the last, is the last one. Is it 5.14, the last one that you spoke on? Honorable Ryder?
5.10, Chair.
5.10. The committee notes the slow progress by the communications sector in implementing and releasing the broadband spectrum in order to leverage private sector capacities for lower data costs and ensure higher interest speed. I will request you to also speak to this one, Honorable Ryder, just for me to get a clarity on your view opposing to this one. What is your proposal on this one?
Chairperson, 5.10, I merely want to say that the committee notes with concern, because we've spoken about the slow progress in releasing the broadband spectrum for 10 years.
Not just note, but we note concern.
Just to add notes with concern.
We add with concern.
Correct.
Okay, honorable members, can you speak to these two other items that honorable riders are really convinced? Can I be persuaded to be convinced on this one? Honorable members.
Chairperson.
Yes, Honorable Mkiva.
Chairperson, yes, I'm here. I wanted to say that I think as far as I recall, Chair, we did not end just at noting that fact. We actually went on to welcome the contents of that bill. So to say that we can't welcome what we had not seen is also not correct, because we were indeed briefed about that.
Yes.
So we were not thumb-sucking when we said the committee will welcome. It was based on the fact that it is something that was presented to us. And then in appreciation of that, and we then went on to say we actually welcome.
Okay.
Yeah,
we are not the understanding that. Yeah. Okay. Continue, Honorable Mkiva.
No, I'm saying that on a matter that is substantial like that, we can't just end at noting as a committee, because we are a committee at work, and the matter that was before us needed us to go beyond just the issue of noting, to actually say we welcome it or we reject it. And I want to believe that we took a decision to say we actually welcome the bill. Thank you, Chairperson.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Detroit.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I support. Can you hear me, Chair? Am I audible? Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Chair,
yes, I can hear you.
I'm supporting the Honourable Rider's suggestion. I'd like to do addition also to 0.5.5, if we could. Actually, it's a correction, not an addition. The negative effect of the pandemic that had on the small, medium, and micro enterprises and many unskilled workers. It's not only the unskilled workers that lost their jobs, but skilled workers as well. Through the bank, people lost their jobs. So we must please insert skilled and unskilled, just to reflect what is currently transpiring in the country.
Okay. On that one, the 5.5, I can agree with you. To make that, I'm still not convinced on the first two items. No, and I think Honorable Mkiva has put it very clear that the subject for us is very important. We are dealing about appropriation, and when we were dealing with this appropriation, behind our mind, we knew that this appropriation was tabled before the House in the NA, the COVID, and we have to deal with it and give it the respect that it deserves. So, honorable members, can you please come in? Other members that want to come into the subject. I don't agree with them. I still maintain the welcoming. We welcome this budget. Honorable Jatu, where are you?
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Honorable Jatu.
Chairperson,
yes, sir.
One. Yes, I will receive you now. Yes, Chairperson, thank you very much. Again, greetings to all members. Chairperson, my video is on, Chair. The video is on. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hello.
I can see you.
You can. Okay. Thank you, Chair. Chairperson. Yeah. Can I may speak?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you, Chair. Chairperson, the report in terms of the body, I believe that thorough consultation was well considered. Coming to the recommendations, I would want just to put emphasis on some of the recommendations as we going to look in terms of adopting the Committee on Appropriations have been engaged with the above stakeholders. So, Chairperson, in after gazetting this bill, which is allocated 6396.1 billion across national, according to the legislation in terms of the Constitution, Section 2132 of the Constitution. Therefore, I'm making this emphasis, Chair, that the Minister of Finance, together with other ministers, should ensure that proper governance systems, prevention, mechanism, and internal controls are put in place to ensure full compliance after this bill is being approved. And also the emphasis, Chair, that the National Treasury should work closely with the Land Bank and continuously monitor the support to the Land Bank. Also, to governments around the world are expected to play an important role in the management of COVID and economic recovery. The national government should take advantage of that. Then, Chair, my further point I want to make is that at provincial level, all healthcare budgets should be protected, and provincial treasurers should put in place clear monitoring mechanisms for expenditure and performance and corrupt practices. At local government, the prioritization should not affect budgets meant for provision of basic services like water and sanitation. The reprioritizing of education sector budget should ensure that rural schools receive much needed support for the management of COVID-19, given that schools are expected to reopen gradually across all provinces. Then my last 2 points, Chairperson, is to government should follow a system approach to the budget. This should include use the data for previous years spending patterns to identify the programs and votes. Lastly, Chair, I'm going to make my proposal for the purpose of monitoring and expenditure implement on conditional grants is useful for oversight purpose, and information should be provided timelessly in a simple and understandable format. Chairperson, I'm proposing that we approve this report, and this is my proposal. Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Njandu. I'm experiencing connectivity problem in terms of hearing exactly and explicitly what you're saying. You were cut at times. I see that you have highlighted and spoken to all the issues that you wanted to speak in as far as recommendations are concerned. By then, I want to take it that you are also comfortable. Let me commit with the welcoming of the bill, Honorable Njandu. Just that, because I want us, before we go to new issues, we must pass on that first. Honorable Njandu?
Yeah.
The matter that was raised by Honorable Ryder, we either welcome
I'm comfortable.
Okay, thank you. We are welcoming.
Yes.
Estelle, yeah, no, it's fine, Honorable Judge. You can switch off the mic. Estelle, there's something that you wanted to raise. I don't know if it's in concern with what Honorable Karim has raised. And Honorable, Lubabalo, can you contact Honorable Karim, please, to see if he can avail himself. We are going towards the conclusion.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. I'll do as instructed, Chair. Before you give Estelle the platform, Chairperson, I would like to indicate that my colleague Nelia from PBO would like to participate in the meeting and assist where possible. Nelia from PBO.
Okay, they can participate in terms of advice. Mandate, she's welcome. Please take the platform, madam. PBO.
Yes, morning, honourable members. I will participate on the chat if possible. I don't have to participate in the meeting itself. I will provide my comments on the chat. Thank you.
Now that I've given you the platform, can you advise? I think the country also want to know if you are doing your mandate, you're carrying out your mandate. It might help us that we get your advices which might change our view in terms of other items on the report before we adopt it. May I persuade you to please talk?
My only concern at this stage, Honourable Chairperson, was that this report and the appropriations budget that we're approving now, or the appropriations bill, was based on previous outcomes. So we are not talking at this stage in terms of the adjusted budget that is still coming or that will still be tabled on the 24th and later this year.
Very good. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your intervention. I think you were just reminding us of what we know. And I also understand that it's very difficult not to confuse the two, because we are already living and confused and frustrated by the COVID-19. So it's easy to be taken by the things that are happening, the activities that are happening, that are affecting us, that are affecting people that we are representing. But we are still coming to that issue of COVID-19 budget. I'm just saying COVID-19 budget. I don't know how are they going to name it. I don't know the name yet, but we are still coming to that process. Oh no. Eunice is still endaweni.
Yeah, thank you. Very quickly, Comrade Chair, I was hearing you. Unfortunately, I left my unmute button muted when the nurse was doing what she was doing. Quite painful. So sorry about that. You must have heard my personal groans. But that's unavoidable because I have a vein problem and they find it difficult to access the blood. But having said that, very quickly, there's very little for me to say. I could hear everything, but I couldn't see you because I didn't have the facilities while en route back to the house. But
we can hear you. We can hear you.
Now, yes. But I could hear you previously while making my way back to the house. But look, let me not bore you with the personal details. It's only to say that, look, I think it's a very good report. Personally, there are very few things. Under recommendations, obviously the text I've got 515, but the subheading is 6 recommendations. So I take it that it should read 6.1 onwards. Then very quickly, going to
6.1.
Yes, it should read not 5.15, 6.1, but you know, that's something they can sort out, the staff. It's not a big deal. There are some minor errors which I've sent, not errors, suggestions I've got, which I sent through to you last night. And I think that those things are quibbles, like whether you say to support the farmers will benefit the nation or the country. Country seems to be the more appropriate word in 519. But that's a minor. But 520 is a point I'd like to make, which I'm sure at least the ANC will agree. I can't speak for other parties, obviously. 520, I suggest that we add after National Treasury needs to address the financial challenges of the land bank urgently and work closely with. In other words, at the moment, we know the land bank and the committees, the two finance committees on both sides, are going to receive a report from the land bank shortly about where it is, and the minister is going to address us too in that regard. So we should recommend that Treasury addresses the financial challenges of the land bank urgently as well. Otherwise, they can't do the things we propose they do. On 5, that's 520. I don't know if you want to deal with that now or do you want to come back to it? Chairperson?
Okay, you can go on, sir.
Okay, must I go on? Sorry, I'm looking at my text quickly. Then you go to, hang on, I see there's a double sound coming through, but I've got it on my phone and on my computer. I'm sorry about this, colleagues, but it was unavoidable. At the time this booking with a specialist was done, we weren't supposed to meet today. Look, beyond that, I think it's a very good report. The only things I'd like to suggest is that in 5.2, we talk about the public sector wage bill. So I suggest we add something, if the majority agree, that the government engages appropriately with the public sector unions on the wage bill in a give and take way. In other words, both sides making concessions. Then I think there should be a generic recommendation to the effect that the committee fully supports the need to reduce unproductive spending, even more now with the implications of the COVID-19 pandemic, but recommends that in the supplementary budget, every effort should be made to find programs for reduction that are not at the core of service delivery and development. So while this is about the 2020 February budget, obviously it's spilled over into considering what is likely to happen on June 24th with the supplementary budget. I heard Mr. Ryder say there should be a generic point that while we are addressing this appropriations bill, we recognize that it's a transitional bill, if you like, because there's a new bill coming at the end of June, and I think that covers that. And so perhaps we should have a generic point too, that when government comes with its recommendations, which is processing right now, that it also takes into account where it finds savings from. I also think we need a firmer recommendation that the NHI needs to be accelerated and savings need to be found in other programs to facilitate this. Because if anything, as we've discussed before, the NHI is crucial as never before, given what's happened over the last 3 months in our country. Now, in view of 5.10 above, I also recommend the release of the much delayed spectrum be accelerated. And we've observed in 5.11 that the AGSA is not playing a role in some entities, public entities, and we feel we should recommend that the AGSA should, over time, because they don't have the resources and the capacity, audit more of these government entities that we referred to in 5.11. The final thing to say, Chairperson, you will recall this matter of what these reports are about, and what you can say is, given what the discussions that happened previously, we've discussed this before in the last term of Parliament, and we said that even if we've not discussed an issue until now, when we are processing the report in response to Mr. Ryder, this is the approach we've taken. The report is the final outcome of any discussion. The report is being discussed right now. Nothing prevents a member from adding in the report something about discussions, because it is in fact a discussion on the report that we haven't actually discussed before, provided it relates to the topic, which is appropriations bill, and it is being discussed in a formal committee. Thank you. But I've sent the text, so the staff have got it, Chairperson, and you've got it. What the committee broadly agrees on, they can look at the wording and change the wording if they don't like it. But the ideas are what I'm proposing, and that's what I'm asking for agreement on. But if the majority don't agree, I'm cool about it. Thank you. I'm done, Chairperson. Thank you so much. And what I heard.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Karim, and I'm happy that you are still energetic after consultation. Honorable members, I think Honorable Karim has covered all the things that he wanted to raise, and these are the things that we have discussed, and some of the issues were raised before he joined the meeting, like the issue of COSAL to the wage bill, which was raised by Honorable Ryder. I want us to go to 5.5. If you don't mind, Honorable members. The 5.5, I think we need to be consistent in terms of the language that we are using and the recommendation and the thinking around our report. It says the COVID-19 pandemic has had dire negative implications for many small, no, not this one, under recommendations.
Chair,
Where is it? Okay, yes.
Chair, sorry to, if I may assist.
5.12. Yeah. Yes,
Chair, sorry, we still needed to clarify. I'm sorry to take you back. Mr. Ryder's point on 5.3 about the reprioritization.
5.3.
Yes. Sorry, let me just find, sorry, 5.4.
While the committee supports.
Oh, sorry, no, it is 5.3. Yes, ma'am. The reprioritization, I just want to, Nelia partly covered us there. I just wanted Mr. Ryder's suggested that we delete the second part about the reductions being made to underperforming and underspending programs because we haven't seen the adjustment budget yet. What Nelia referred to was that this section refers to this current appropriation bill that the committee that's before the committee. It comes from the presentation that National Treasury made on this bill. So maybe to avoid, to clarify, we can take out the bit that says during the COVID-19 pandemic, because that 0.5.3 relates to this current appropriation bill, where Treasury has made baseline reductions to mostly underperforming programs. So if members agree, then we can take out, just to clarify, then we can say, while the committee supports the budget reprioritization, it has noted with concern, and then we take out during the COVID-19 pandemic, because it actually relates to this current appropriation bill, and then we don't delete the second part that refers to where the reductions were made, if members are in agreement.
Okay. Honorable members, those are the suggestions that comes from Estelle.
Chairperson, unless there's something I don't see, I think it's...
Yes, Honorable Karim.
Yeah, I'm saying, unless there's something Estelle saying that I don't understand, I think what she's saying is correct and I agree with it, but, you know, I don't know what other members feel.
Yes. Yeah, just wanted to confirm with members that are they comfortable with the advice that we get from the team. You're fine. Honorable Ryder, you are fine.
I am giving.
Honorable Ditoit, also fine.
To that point.
I'm fine with the comments by the personnel. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you so much. Honorable Mchan,
giving my
you
support,
have
Chair.
dealt with the recommendations on 6. May I check with other members if there's anything else that they want to highlight on 6 recommendations?
Chair, could I have a go, please? It's Dennis Ryder.
Honorable Ryder, have you raised your hand, Honorable Ryder? Honorable Ryder, have you raised your hand?
It's up. It's there. Good.
No, you know how it is. I'll just be okay. You go on.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Look, I think that certainly the adjustment that Estelle just proposed achieves the same effect that I wanted. So, agreeing with that. Then most of Mr. Karim's amendments, I think, were suitable. The one I have a problem with and a material problem with is obviously the acceleration of the NHI. That is obviously an ideological difference. So from half of the committee, I think, would support it. The other half would not. But obviously, I just wanted to note that it doesn't get universal support. The acceleration of the NHI. In terms of the other recommendations, I'm quite happy with the majority of them. I'm going to refer to the incorrect numbering just with a few tweaks, if I may. I thought that in 5.17 or 517, beg your pardon, where we talk about the SOEs,
So,
I think.
Back to 5.
I beg your pardon, Chair.
5.2.
Hello.
Just wanted to check if we are saying going back to 5. I thought we are
No,
5.
no, Chair.
5. What?
Sorry, Chair,
It's
is referring to the
5.1.
new 6.3. The renumbering in the latest version is referring to 6.3 dealing with SOEs.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I see.
Thank
The
you,
one
Estelle.
that speaks to SOEs, yes.
Correct. I think we must capture the minister's own comments there, where he said in one of our meetings that, and it was this is a direct quote, there is no more money for failing SOEs. I think that was a direct quote coming out of a meeting, and something along those lines needs to be noted. So that's on that one. Then 1, 2, 3. So the new 6.6 then speaks to the land bank issues. I think Honourable Karim has made some changes there, which actually covered most of what I wanted to say. Right. Chairperson, I'm just trying to work out the new numbering and the old numbering. Okay, so the old 528, 5.28, I'm not sure what that new number is. But what that says is it makes two fairly strong points. The first one is reprioritized budget should be deliberate in addressing the needs of vulnerable communities, including women, children, youth, and people with living disabilities, and also protect caregivers and single parents. It then says, furthermore, budget reprioritization should also protect economic infrastructure budgets. I believe that from furthermore should actually be a whole new point. So removing the furthermore and specifically highlight the fact, because it's an important point that's being made, and for emphasis, I think a separate point should be made. The next one is the old 5.29. Government should follow a systemic approach to reprioritize the budget and should include use of data for previous year spending patterns. I wanted to just interrogate what that means, because the fact is that...
Sorry, excuse me. I
Yes,
beg your pardon, Honourable Rider. When you say we must come with a separate point, can you suggest the point that you think we should come up with, if possible now, please?
Chairperson,
So that it becomes part of the package that we are going to adopt.
Chair, the one
Yes,
paragraph which had two sentences, splitting it in two for emphasis.
Are you talking about 6.8? All right.
Chair, thank you. We've done that. We've split it in two now. The correct numbering is now 6.14. Reprioritize should be deliberate in addressing the needs of vulnerable communities. And the next number, it says budget reprioritization should protect economic infrastructure budget. So they're just now two separate recommendations instead of the one.
And we have also corrected 6.5, between 6.5 and 6.6. You have corrected that.
Yes, ma'am. The numbering has now been corrected again.
Okay. Thank you. Honourable Rider, are you...
Chairperson, I'm back, yes.
Still on the floor, or are you done?
Thank you. I've got one more issue that I'm looking for clarification on, please, Chair. It's the second last recommendation, which says government should follow a systemic approach to reprioritize the budget. Yeah. This should include the use of data for previous year's spending patterns. The second last one, Chair, I'm not sure what the correct number is.
For now, it says 6.19. While the committee fully supports the need, is that the one?
No. It's the one that says government should follow a systemic approach.
Still under 6.
Under 6, yes.
Okay. It says it's 6.16. Okay, I got it.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify what this paragraph means, because it says this should include the use of data for previous year's spending patterns to identify slow spending programs and votes. I'm not actually sure what this recommendation is proposing, because I would assume that historic data is always taken into account, but to base the new adjustment budget on just a copy and paste is quite opposite of what I think the committee is recommending. I think we're saying government needs to be reinvented in terms of how the budget is allocated. So I was actually wanting clarity from the person that crafted this paragraph, just to highlight, because it doesn't really say anything, but what it does put forward, I don't agree with. I'm not sure if I'm expressing myself very clearly on that one, Chair, but I don't like this paragraph at all. It doesn't make a firm recommendation as far as I'm concerned.
You just don't like it. Thank you, Honorable Ryder. I'm told Honorable Karim's hand is up. Honorable Karim?
Yes, sorry. Just very quickly, I'm not sure that I follow, partly because I wasn't paying sufficient attention. Unfortunately, I had something urgently to address related to my party political responsibilities on a Monday. But the earlier point, I'm not worried about this. Firstly, under the 5.17, I think it is the new 6.3, I don't think it's appropriate under recommendations to refer to what the minister said in this context. Secondly, it's normally the ANC that's criticized for succumbing to ministers, for being like lap dogs of the ministers. And normally it's the DA that chooses every opportunity to attack the minister. But it's very surprising that when it comes to the Minister of Finance, the DA clutches onto his every word, at least in this committee. It's very strange, really. We are Parliament. We hold the ministers to account. No minister is God. The government is not God. The president is not God. We have a constitutional right to reject what a minister says. So firstly, if you want to observe what the minister said, then it should go into the observations, in the earlier section where you're overviewing what he said. I think he's right to say, that's my personal view, which I'm entitled to. The chairperson doesn't have to necessarily agree. It doesn't mean that either of us are speaking for the ANC or the NEC. But I think he's right to say that government does not have large pools of money anymore, and never did actually, to bail out SOEs that don't perform. And I think we agree with that. But we shouldn't cling on to the minister opportunistically. That's not the way I see Parliament's role. That should be our own observation. So if we want to observe that there isn't the money available and that SOEs have to pull themselves up by their bootstrap, that's fine. But not because the minister, it's because Parliament itself independently comes to it. So I don't think we should clutch. Chairperson, I think we're going backwards. Each time the minister says something the DA likes, they cling onto it. No, Parliament must come to its own clear conclusions. For example, it is perfectly consistent with ANC for me to say, ANC policy for me to say, that is often used as an excuse by other parties to say ESCOM should be privatized, to say that core services, water boards, and so on, hand it over to the private sector. That is why I think the way we word it is very clear. Each SOE has to be judged on its specific merits. Where it's delivering a basic service like electricity, we cannot say we do not have money for all SOEs. We don't have money for certain SOEs. We have to have money for other SOEs. We can find the money for it where we to reduce corruption, waste, mismanagement, and so on. So I suggest we don't put any reference here to what the minister said. That can go into, if people want it, and if indeed he said it, he does say it often, and he's right, that should go on to his political overview. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Karim. If I have to respond to what Honorable Karim and Honorable Ryder have raised, I think we need to be able to separate the recommendations and the observations. the recommendation must speak to an observation. And if we talk about what Minister said as a recommendation, what observation have we made? And some of the issues we have discussed this matter in our committee. We haven't agreed on it as an issue, and we saw it as a political statement. And someone amongst us as a committee even said that the minister said it towards his closing remarks or whatever. It was not part of the real discussions of this. I will persuade members to not go on and trying to put in the issue of the minister of what he said or have not said in the recommendation. It doesn't speak to any findings. And if members feel strongly about it, they will talk about it in the right platform as a political statement or as a political view. So can we live with what we have, honorable members? Thank you so much. With your permission, honorable members, it's now 6 minutes.
Sorry, my hand was
the other meeting. Who is it? Oh, Okam. I saw you. Sorry, Honorable Okam. Really?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, just to come back to this point, I don't want to overrule you as a Chair, and please just give me this moment. It's just, I heard what the Honorable Karim now said, but it's just strange to me that each time a minister says something that the ANC don't like, you want to just brush it underneath the carpet. This is an extremely important point. One of the biggest reasons that we are sitting in the situation that we are due to the bailing out of state-owned enterprises that failed us time and time again. We've got a minister stating that we should not bail out failing state-owned enterprises anymore. I think that is a huge statement. I think that was a well-thought-through statement by the minister. Nobody makes a big statement like that just to let it hang in the air, especially if you look at the history of our country. And I think it's extremely important that we must include that into our report. Not for political gain, but for the mere fact that a minister said that, obviously well thought through, looking at the history of all our state, well, most of our state-owned enterprises, and the amount of money that it cost this country, and the amount of service delivery that it took away from citizens of this country, whilst we could have given roads and infrastructure to poor citizens, we still kept on and gave money to failing state-owned enterprises. And now we've got a minister that comes and says, we must stop doing that. I think that is huge, and I think that should be included in the report. I think that would be a fair summary of what was discussed in this. It's not a member of the committee only, it's the minister that said that. And I can't see why it should not be in the report. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Oka. I think our report must not lose focus, and we must not allow ourselves to be swallowed by politics. Our report must speak to resolutions and recommendations that are going to assist the government. And once we start talking about engage or referring to parties, this has happened because of the ANC, or this has happened because of the DA or whatever, we are going to lose our focus. And I've always requested members not to allow ourselves to go to that extent. This debate has been there in our previous meeting, and it was lost. Whoever brought it up, it was lost. Let's not start again to bring in this matter. If you strongly feel that you want to quote or you want to talk to what the minister has said politically, please take it to the debate on Thursday. That's where we can go and politic there. But I think this report covers the resolutions, the findings, in as the process of the bill is concerned. I'm now going to allow the last two people that they've raised their hand, and please, I'm 10 minutes. We are 10 minutes late for Honorable Njandu. Your hand is up, and thereafter is Honorable Karen. Honorable Njandu.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Yeah, Chairperson, I want to come on this point. I think this committee have got a very, very, and the mandate of this committee is to make sure that appropriations are proper, to make sure that we have a good governance. So we must not lose that focus on making sure the outcome of this committee is to ensure good governance. So I would really want members not to use this platform for politics, because there are platforms that are created so that we make sure that the outcome and the report that we are presenting is a credible report that will make sure that we are ensuring good governance. So that is my point, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable.
Chairperson, I think you're calling on me to speak. Firstly, in reply to Willie, no one, or at least I certainly didn't say, and I was quite explicit about it, that it shouldn't be in the report. I said if the majority want it in the report, it must go in the section on the political overview of the minister. It's not a recommendation. The minister can't recommend on our behalf. Secondly, an aspect of what the minister says, I think the majority of us agree. There isn't the money available for all the state-owned entities and those that are not performing. That's all we say. But obviously, we can't have a blanket statement like that for the reasons that we are political parties. I agree with what you and Mr. Njadu are saying, Comrade Njadu. But the fact is, we are politicians. We are elected as members of parliament. In a report, you can't be abstract. I mean, why are we in parliament if we're not politicians? I don't know. So I think the argument here is not that we represent different political parties with different principles, values, ideologies, policies, and strategies. It's that you, Chairperson, are rightly seeking to secure consensus around recommendations, which is laudable. And your style is very good, and it's a very good report. And I think given that we've got COVID-19, more than ever, we need to have a relative degree of consensus despite our differences. We are one country, and in this sense, one nation, actually. And we should, for now at least, until we get out of this COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 mess, we should avoid unduly, I think, over-politicizing is the word I would use. We have to politicize, that's what we're here for. Over-politicizing, that's the point. The point is, if they want everything in the report, I am cool, but it must go in the right section. We cannot speak, but hold the ministers to account. That's what we're here for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Please, let's allow ourselves to have progress in as far as processing this report. And we must also appreciate that there will be times where we will agree and there will be times where we disagree because of what other members spoke about, representing different ideologies. So that's how it is. So we are done with number 6. And the next one is 7 is the conclusion, which I think does not...
Sorry to intrude. It's Eunice, sorry to intrude. But if you look at the chat, Comrade Chat, if you see what Nelia is saying, I think we need to take a decision because both those points she makes, there and there, I don't know what time, 10:00 and 10:04, Chairperson, they're very good points. I see Pelani has responded, I think it is to say, yeah, he agrees, but he's not an MP. So with due respect to him, as bright as he is and all that, the committee is misled on that matter. So what I'm saying in short is, can we decide on what Nelia is saying? Both of them seem eminently sensible to me, at least, Chairperson, but we have to take a decision on them.
Chair, if I can comment on that, then I certainly would support that.
Before you support Honorable Ryder,
Indeed.
I was trying to get the 10 points, the points that Honorable Karim is referring to, so that I'm also familiar with the issues that he's raising. Can you say the names again, Honorable Karim, with due respect, please?
No, it's fine, my friend. You're cheering, so it's not easy to do everything.
Which points are those?
If you go to the meeting chat, right, Chairperson, if you go to 10:00, that means at 10 o'clock, Nelia Olandi, guest, right? She asks, what about performance information? Not just expenditure. Some programs spend without performing on planned outputs. In different words, Comrade Chair, we've said that even in the last term. And then you look again at 10:04, similarly she says, lack of relevant performance information makes the review of a program very difficult. She's absolutely right, Comrade Chair. It's the sort of thing you and I think the opposition parties have also said. We use simpler words, less technical words, but we are saying the same thing as Nelia. And I think she's making a good point, two good points, related in a way, and we should take a decision, in my view at least, to support it. But it's left to you, Chair, and the majority.
So I think you were talking to the new numbering, because I didn't have 10. I just saw that there are new numbering that have been...
Chair, you look at the right of the screen.
Honorable Ryder has agreed with you on what you have raised.
So what? It doesn't matter. The majority, the ANC matters.
Karim, I'm going to mute you.
I'll sort you out
Honorable
later.
Karim, I'm going to mute you.
We appreciate your actions.
And Honorable Jandu, you must help me and whip him. Okay, can I find out Mkiva, Muletsani? If you are quiet, it means you agree with the two honorable members on what they are saying. The advice that came from the colleague there towards us, because it's us as members of this committee, as politicians who must adopt it or make it to be part, agree to be for it to be part of the report. Mkiva, are you fine with that? Yes, Esther?
I am okay, Chairperson.
Okay, Esther?
Sorry, Chair, to take you back. I just want to clarify, just to make sure the report is correct, the issue that Nelia raised on the performance information. Was that in relation to Mr. Ryder's point of the 616 that government should follow a systematic approach to reprioritize the budget? This should include use of data for previous year's spending patterns. Then is it there that we must include and performance data? I just want to clarify so that we have the wording correct for the report. Is that the point that it's referring to, that members are agreeing? Because Mr. Ryder wasn't happy with
yes,
that paragraph.
I think
so we include there the use of the performance information. All right, thank you.
That's correct, Honorable. Sorry, Estelle. That's correct. That's correct. You're very much correct. Members, can we now move? Anything that you want to change in conclusion? I'm so generous today. Anything that you want to change, you want to include? Nothing so far. So, the honorable members, the select committee on appropriation on day, the 15th of July, the 15th of June 2020, stood before us for I get the mover, please?
I move, Chairperson. Eunice, thank you.
Honorable Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Eunice. Before, don't talk before I recognize you. Can I get a seconder? Whoever is going to speak is going to speak as a seconder. Can I get a seconder, please?
Chairperson, I want
Can I
second.
Can I second, Chair? Can I second, Jadu?
There's no seconder. Okay, Honorable Njadu, you second.
Jadu?
Can I get a descending view?
Yes.
Njadu, you have seconded. You can't have a descending view. You're fine. It's fine. I heard you say.
Honorable Chairperson, Veli speaking.
Who's that?
It's Veli Okam speaking, Honorable Chair.
Honorable Okam.
Honorable Chair, the DA reserves its position on this.
Okay, thank you. Honorable Detroit.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, please note my dissenting view. The Freedom Front Plus doesn't support this bill.
Thank you, Honorable Mletani. Abstain.
Chairperson, EFF doesn't support this bill.
Thank you very much. So with that, honorable members, checking the numbers in the meeting, therefore the report is of this bill is duly approved and adopted. Thank you very much, honorable members. As I close, honorable members, we are requested to be part of the meeting of Wednesday, as the four committees: select committee on appropriation, select committee on finance, standing committee on finance, standing committee on appropriation, whereby we will be starting the process of dealing with the appropriations, the appropriation bill or COVID-19 appropriation bill. So you will, in due course, receive official invitation to, and we also want to request the members of this committee, please, on Thursday, please, just try to make sure that you log in time. Don't log in late in the last minute, because we have seen that people are being locked out, and your votes are important. So make sure you log in time and participate as we always do in our committee. Thank you so much, honorable members. We were supposed to deal with minutes, but we are not going to deal with minutes. We'll deal with them in the next meeting, because we have to rush to another meeting. Thank you so much, honorable members. Take care of yourselves, and thank you. Stay safe.
You well. Bye-bye.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Siyabonga, Chairperson.